This is part 14 of the FZ600. I don't know what you would call this, but we had a little bit of a meltdown with the paint incompatibility yesterday, and hopefully we're going to work on it today and maybe come up with what I think is the final solution. Now, to be fair, almost all the paint compatibility issues I've ever had, going back to developing Brodak dope, was from one brand of product going over another one, and then when you put this one over that one, it would alligator skin. Well, that's what happened to us with this Sherwin-Williams paint. But it looks like the way I got around this, and believe me, at some point in time, it's the only solution you have is to take the whole part and go get a couple gallons of paint remover and about 10 rolls of paper towels and do it outside and bring it down. But the problem with even with doing that is if you have a problem deep inside the paint, and these parts are so old you never really know. You don't know if they use lacquer. Did they use, what kind of primers did they use? So when you're doing any of these things, it's mystery meat. But anyway, what worked for us yesterday, and I'm going to go over this part by part, supposedly worked anyway. Now the whole thing is there's still a couple little flaws in here, but I don't want to sand any more than I have to, because once I put clear on this, it'll fill that right in. So what I want to do now is I want to backmask this part up. It's supposed to get sunny this afternoon, might be able to get some painting done. I'd like to get the red stripe painted on here, and I'll do all that off camera, to backmask in and everything, because I have one more fairing part to do. I still have one more fairing to back, this one here is to get backmasked. And then hopefully, if the weather does change, we can shoot some of the red. But keep in mind, anytime you have paint compatibility issues, if you're starting off with a certain brand of paint and you've already done the steps, it's like a sandwich. It's really not the paint that becomes the overall problem. In my view is it's always the thinner. And since in this Sherwin-Williams paint we're using some very unknown high penetrating thinner, I don't know. I think, well, we're going to find out in the next couple of days. But anyway, we're learning as we go, and we're trying to share what we learn. Okay, we're ready right now. All we need right now is, it looks like it's going to stop raining, so I'm guessing a couple hours from now we'll be able to get, I'm going to test that red paint on a small part. We'll use this for the guinea pig. Test that red. I just hope now the red is 4th dimension, so that shouldn't be a problem. We're going to find out. Now, of course, with these pieces, and I want to be super careful I'm not doing any damage to these. I realize these are delicate now where that paint, where we've touched up the paint, it's going to be a little bit delicate, so this is a good time to, well, I guess the reality is you should always use a little heat pulling the tape up, and it can never hurt. Now the only problem is we pulled up one of our stripes. I got to go back and get the patterns, put this stripe back on. Make sure all this is down where it has to be. All the edges are crisp and clean. This will be another part ready to test. And while we're in this extreme learning curve of Sherwin-Williams paint, or thinner, or both, who knows? With that stripe repaired, we're pretty much ready to spray the red on that part. And always, the best tip I can ever give is if you're in any doubt when you're doing older parts where you have no idea where that paint, what that paint is underneath and what brand it is, and you always have the problem tape may pull up the paint. Heat is your best friend. Another good trick you can use is if it's a summer day and it's 90 degrees out there, you can do it outside. Obviously, that's not going to happen today. That's not it. But it looks like we're closing in on having some of these parts ready. Fingernail down in there. And as always, we're dependent on the weather for everything. And all this backmasking, of course, now we have the last thing is to go over the blue stripe. The only thing we have exposed is the red, where it's going to be red. I checked our accurate weather and they said in roughly in 2 hours it's going to be nice out. I don't know. I don't know about that. But I'm going to plan as if it is going to be. Hope for the best, as we always do. Stay positive. Would like to see the red on here, and I would like to see if it's going to be a problem. That's going to be just one more clue as to what our compatibility issues were or might be on this job. And again, we never know. Stuff that's this old and you don't know where it's been and you don't know what material it is. Boy, and every part is different. There are some fiberglass parts and some, these are plastic. And plastic itself. I've done Ducati mirrors for Luciano. One mirror, perfect. One mirror melts like alligator skin. Now the last thing is going to be just one fairing from this set. Remember, with this job, there's several sets of fairings. So we're trying to finish one set because Vlad has a job we want to do for him before the summer gets here and we pack it in. But this hopefully we can get one set done for Mark and get Vlad's job before the real riding season gets here. And I've done this on camera already. It's on the one of the previous videos. Just going to do all the back masking for that for the blue stripes. And then say a prayer that the blue doesn't melt. Why am I laughing? Time to see if it's our lucky day. This is always what I enjoy. Not really. I don't get that many lucky days. And this is what seems to be happening the last couple of days as it comes. The rain comes, the rain goes, and as soon as I get set up to paint, I got one part just tested, one coat to see if this was going to have an issue. And it certainly looks okay, but I can't paint anymore, that's for sure. Of course, it needs 3 coats. Now, a couple of tips if you spray it dry. Dry meaning less thinner in the paint, less pressure, less material going on. What you don't want to do is put a big wet coat on. The more thinner there is, the more it's going to penetrate. Anyway, until we get some weather, I'm not sure today is going to be that we're going to get a whole lot more done. Anytime I look out at the pond and I see the little raindrops hitting the pond, I pretty much know that's the end of it for today. There's days I've tried to wait this out like at a baseball game or something, but once it's raining and it's on and off and on and off, you almost never get a break. Well, we'll give it another hour or so and then we got to go get the baby. So I guess the bad news is the rain is going to wipe out our day, but the good news is we'd have all of these parts ready for the red test, and the last thing I'm going to do is mix up a batch of red, make sure I got the thinner and the pressure right, so that if we do, and even if we do get a break at the end of the day, I can sneak out here and get some paint on this. But I'm not holding my breath either. So what I'm going to do, and I thought I'd pass this tip on, it's really a more useful tip than you think it is. This is the original. I painted the fender with this, and we did not have an issue going over the fender. But of course, the fender is a totally different part than the parts we have issues with. So this is mixed with a high penetrating thinner, the normal shop thinner that we use. But I do have some, and what I'm going to try to do here is stack the deck. What I'm going to do is take this, mark this, because sooner or later we wind up with hundreds of jars up here, and I do try to keep track of everything. But now this is, and what's real nice is this is fourth dimension paint. So we have low penetrating thinner. Low penetrating means the thinner dries fast. The kind of thinner you would use to clean a paint gun. It's the least expensive thinner, and it's always, here's something I found out the hard way, always use urethane thinner, not lacquer thinner. It just makes it less things in there that can bubble up and make alligator skin, as we just found out. But anyway, I do have some low penetrating thinner. It's always, let me just show what the can, because some people don't understand. Well, I'm trying to pass information on, not trying to make Gone with the Wind here. Fast. You'll see some of the thinners say slow, some are medium. Fast thinner means this is going to dry fast. We will get a little less bond, but in this case we don't care because we're dealing with all new painted parts. We're going to be going over new paint, so in theory this should be the answer to our problem. But again, I'll mix up a batch, I'll do a little test, and if it ever stops raining, I just looked outside, it's pouring right now. But this is a good thing to know. Thinner. There's all different kinds of thinner. There's compatibility issues, and you can't really just play mix and match. You think you can, and sometimes you get away with it, but then every once in a while you don't. There's another little tip you think wouldn't be a big deal. Now, on red, it is a big deal, as you can see. This paint's been sitting a couple days, and what happens, of course, all the pigments falls to the bottom. Now, if you have, and I've done this is how I know, if you put this in a spray gun and you go to spray it, the pigment, of course, is going to all fall to the bottom. So what's a good idea is to just take the lid off the spray gun and stir it. Stir it with a screwdriver, or I always like a screwdriver as my first choice. Now, and this is really something that I think is really worth its weight in gold. I'm going to mix this with less thinner. Usually you would mix urethane, almost all urethane, 1:1. Well, and Sherwin-Williams tells you to mix it 16:1. Well, 16:16, I mean. But this paint, and it's the least expensive paint, it always seems to give me the least amount of headaches too. I mix it 1:1, but in this case I'm going to mix it a little more paint than thinner for my test. Now, it is a small and unrelated tip, but something that must be worth something anyway. When you stir any epoxy, now it's not all epoxy, but it's some epoxy like Epon and some of the Huntsman's. When you stir 2 parts of epoxy, it's good to stir it with a rod, a metal, a screwdriver, something. Not wood. When you stir with wood, what happens with the wood, some of the chemicals in some of the hardeners immediately get absorbed into the wood. And what happens is then the mix is not correct. You have a mix that you've lost some of the good properties of that epoxy. So I always have a bunch of these Harbor Freight screwdrivers laying around. As soon as I'm done stirring, I wipe it off. Sounds like it would be a simple tip. I still see a lot of people stirring epoxy with wood. No, it just doesn't seem like we're going to catch a break, and we have to get over to the school and pick up the baby. So that's it for this video, and we'll pick this up tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. And thanks for watching. And as we look at over the parts and all the things we have to do here before I actually go edit this video, this job has turned out to be by far one of the biggest in terms of how much backmasking, how much repair work, how much tricks we had to deal with in the painting. But I still think when this job is done, Mark is going to be one of the happiest Yamaha owners of all time. I hope so. Anyway, again, thanks for watching. Time to get the baby. No, I really toughed it out today, right to the end of the day. I really wanted to see if we were going to have any issues with the red paint, and it doesn't look like we're going to have any. Of course, once we check the garage doesn't lie. The garage is like gravity. It never lies. Yeah, we don't have any compatibility issues at all. At all. So, and it looks like, as I put this away, it looks like the seat has been recovered. We've recovered from that debacle. It looks like after 3 coats of blue with the low penetrating, no Sherwin-Williams thinner, that was no problem at all. So I really do like to end today on a real positive note here if I can. And this looks like it just couldn't be any better than that. That looks really like it's going to be fine. And the parts that are ready to pick up, I've looked them over again. These look like they've dried up beautifully. Fairings, it's only a question of when Mark, and of course he's a busy guy. He's a real estate mogul or whatever he is. I'm not sure what he is. But anyway, we do have this stuff he can really pick up. And we got to get Mark to move closer so he can stop by every night and pick up, like emptying the lobster traps here. Anyway, I look around and I think of how many days I spent out here working on this stuff and polishing it and painting it, and I just say, if you don't have a project at my age, and I'm going to be 72 this summer, if you don't have a project, probably not going to live too much longer. Anyway, again, for the 5th time during this video, thanks for watching. But we do tough it out right to the end.